Hey guys, welcome to this week's market focus. And next week seems to be a very interesting one because there's a lot of opportunities lining up on most asset classes, and it's taking time for these things to actually form. So I think it's just going to be a lot of trading opportunities coming in next week. And before we look at those opportunities, it's very important we do a market recap. We'll do the trade recap on the opportunities I had last week or this week. So I'm gonna go right here. So if you remember from the previous video we did, I was looking at US30. So I had this position in on US30. So I'm just gonna go right back to like here around the June 16, and I had these buying opportunities, and I had my stops move to break even. I secured 0.56% at this point. I secured 1.78% at this point. So with the US30 trade, I was just trailing my stops as price was giving me new price action and stuff like that, and there wasn't anything else I was trying to do. I didn't scale in on this position, by the way. I just moved my stops as price started giving me new structure points. By this point, I had about 2.3% secured already, and eventually we had prices like we had this reverse, and then price took me out. So that was it for US30. The only opportunity I had this week was on gold, so I didn't really trade a lot this week, and the only thing I saw that made sense to me was actually gold. So we're looking at this on, I had a buying opportunity on gold, and I had this buys on Friday. So once this was my initial entry on gold for the buying opportunity, and then I eventually closed this position and break even on Friday. And the reason I closed it is because I wasn't very confident with this pullback that came in, and because it's Friday as well, and when market opens on Sunday, it might be a little bit tricky, and we could see some impulsive moves maybe to the up or to the downside. So I closed this simply because I need to reanalyze the pair and see. But after doing the market forecast, everything still aligns properly, and then I'll go in on these buys again when the market opens, or I'll just scratch on this one. So that was it for gold, and that's the only opportunity I had this week. But let's move straight up and see what opportunities we have for next week. So as usual, the first thing we look at is the DXY. So looking at it again from all these like multiple time frames, you can already have an understanding as to what's going to happen next week. But I'm just going to start say with the daily time frame real quick. So here we have the daily time frame, and this is the same structure we've been looking at. I think we looked at this structure, so let me look at this one. The week before last we had this move. Last week, no, the week before last we had so this week we had this move, last week we had this move, and the week before that we had this one. So price has just been pulling back and pulling back, but with all these pullbacks coming in, price is simply respecting this trend line, and you can look at it from the daily time frame. So if you stick on the daily time frame analyzing the DXY, and price hasn't taken out this trend line yet, so we're still respecting these areas. So we have this push here, we have this area taken out, we have this top here, we had this area taken out, there is this top, we've had this area taken out, same thing taken out. So right now we're still having a push at this point, so I'm expecting the buyers to take this area out, and that's just going off of what is happening on the daily time frame and using these trend lines. So first principle, just trend lines. If price keeps respecting this trend line, then we should eventually see the DXY go above 106. I mean an impulsive break above 106, just going off of the trend lines. Now going off of the psychological numbers, we move from say 105 to 106, and now this is the tricky part about it because it gives me another perspective. So when price gets to a psychological number, it has two things it's probably going to do. You probably see the move going in like impulsive, it goes through that psychological number, or it faces some difficulty at this point, and then you see some sellers coming in. And so in as much as I'm looking at the DXY with the possibility for buyers to take prices above 106, I'm also aware like there is this psychological number right here which might cause a little bit of like this difficulty for the buyers. So I'm watching this closely, so I'll step down to the 8-hour time frame just to see. Now when you step down to the 8-hour time frame and progressively to the 4-hour time frame, there's a lot I'm looking at, and it's going to make more sense once we step down to say the hourly time frame even. So here's my focus on the DXY right now. I'm looking at this area right here. With this move to 106, sellers came in and buyers took prices again to 106. You had sellers coming in again. So this piece of price action is what is most important to me as of today, just to help me make decisions for next week. So yes, we're still respecting this buys if we're looking at this trend line from the daily time frame. And again, the daily time frame supersedes any other time frame for me, because I do the daily, 8 hours, 4 hours, and then the hourly. So the daily supersedes any other time frame for me. So if the daily says, all right, we're still in this upward motion, then we're still in an uptrend. But then we most likely want to look at lower time frames again, say like the 8-hour time frame, the 4-hour time frame, and the hourly time frame. So this is what I can tell you. Looking at the 8-hour time frame, we've had prices settling around 106, and if buyers really find it difficult to go past 106, then you should see sellers coming in to take prices down, and that might cause this uptrend to get violated. So because of what is happening at 106, it might cause this uptrend to eventually turn, and they will probably see sellers coming in again. But then this hasn't happened, so because we're still respecting these areas from the daily time frame, the trend line on the daily time frame, and in as much as we have prices hovering around 106, the uptrend is still intact. So we'll keep maintaining this structure as we move to lower time frames. So for example, I'll do the 4-hour time frame. Same thing on the 4-hour time frame. Now the picture becomes clearer because there is some sort of a consolidation at this point. So we've had price move here, test here, and price is right here at this point. So a decision needs to be made, say, between the buyers and the sellers. What direction do you want to go with the DXY? If this sells come in impulsively, then this could be an indication that eventually sellers are going to come in. But if for some reason you see buyers pushing in again really high, then we know the buyers are still in control. Now this is very important because I'll show you something real quick. So yes, we have this consolidation right here, and yes, you probably might say the sellers are coming in already. But when you look at this, and just going off of the way I draw my trend lines, I know most people are not like, there's a lot of people out there that look at it differently, but with the way I draw my trend lines, this for me is still fine, you see. So there's still a possibility you can see price hovering around here and you still see the move going again to the upside. So it doesn't really matter to me like that. So that was just, I'm just putting this out there because there's a lot of people, when you see something like this, you switch already and say, well, like the trend, the uptrend has already changed or is switching already to the downtrend. But going off of the way I draw my trend lines, this for me is still a valid structure to the upside unless I see an impulsive move to the downside. So that's it for the 4-hour time frame, and I'm gonna look at, say, the hourly time frame real quick, and that should be the icing on the cake for this one. So on the hourly time frame, this is what we're looking at. So buyers came in again to 106, sellers reacted from 106, buyers brought prices back to 106, and sellers are reacting again from this point. So overall we have price in this range, and if you just go off of like ranges, if price is ranging here and it's still facing this range at this point, there's a possibility you could see prices dropping and then eventually seeing them move again to the upside. I'll show you what I'm talking about real quick. Hold on, let me make this clean. So if you treat this as a range, for example, you have this point and then you have this point. So take, for example, we had this prices moving here, inability. So the same thing can happen. You have prices moving to the downside, you could see this inability as well, and then you see prices moving again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at on the DXY. So there's this possibility for us to move back to 106 and even go above 106. That's it for me coming into next week. Now this could play out differently, so we could see the sellers come in and take prices lower, but eventually we should see some kind of a pullback again to like 106. So that's it. That's my focus on the DXY. So now we have this on the DXY. Let's look at other asset classes. So the first one I'm going to look at is US30, and this is very interesting just simply because of where price is sitting at right now, and it makes it quite easy for me to go with the analysis on this one. So when you look at US30, what you can tell is we've been in this uptrend. So if you put this, you see there's a top, price is taking out these areas, and truthfully we had sellers coming in, but this is how I look at it. If you move into the upside, and then eventually you see sellers coming in, and these sellers find it difficult to go through 39,000, at this point I'm not actually using a trend line. So with where prices, like looking at this piece of price action right here, I'm not looking at a trend line to make a decision. I'm going off of what price is telling me at this psychological number. So we had difficulties for prices to go through this point. We had difficulties again here, and that makes it very important for me. So having this piece of price action right here with the difficulty for prices to go, or for sellers to take prices go past 39,000, I'm expecting buyers again to test an area like this, and if possible move say to 40,000. Then, so knowing that price has done this at this point, does this give me the guarantee to just go in on this position at this point right now? I'm going to say no, simply because we had a corrective move from the sellers coming in during this wave, but when you compare it to this one, this is very impulsive. So we've had the sellers coming in very impulsive at this point. So looking at US30 right now, you see we've just had this massive move to say 39,000, and it's quite difficult for me to take any buying opportunities from this. So I'll probably wait for prices to come back, maybe test this area, and if it shows me again that there's this difficulty to go past this area, combining it with this and probably this, and knowing what we're probably trading, say we're still in this uptrend and all this is simply a pullback. So it's like a complex pullback where you have price moving up and then eventually you have price pulling back, giving you like a range, and for prices to move again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at on the on US30, and it's a setup I've seen countless times. So with this in mind, I think all I have to do is wait for prices to align again properly, because if you go in here, the risk to reward is probably not the best. And that's another way you can look at it, on how to trade ranges and how ranges form and stuff like that. So you can look at this area and this area. You probably want to buy as close to this point as possible, to the bottom of the range. So you might have a good risk to reward just targeting an area like this. So that's my bias on US30. All I'm looking for is, say, prices to pull back down. I'm going to show you. Take this off. So I'm waiting for prices to pull back down just to give me a good risk to reward and show me that the sellers have completely given up on these sells, and then I'll look for buying opportunities like this. So with US30, I think I'm expecting something like this. Stops here, and we're looking at a possibility like this. So just taking prices to this point, that's 1:4. I might do like 1:3 on this one, 1:3. And if we try to push it higher, we might get, say, 1:5. So that's what I'm looking at on US30. So let's look at NAS100. Now, NAS100 and the S&P500 is slightly, just with the way price is forming, like looking at it just from structure and everything. When you look at US30, we have this move and we have this complex structure here. When you look at NAS100, it's the same thing. It's the same thing but in the opposite direction. you have buyers, and then you have this complex structure here as well. So looking at NAS100, I'm just going to go on this one real quick. So right now we've had prices moving to the upside. We've had prices test 20,000. So we've had this test and this test. I like this one because we have this corrective move again coming to test 20,000. And so right now, looking at NAS100, if I have to take a position on this pair next week, I'll be looking for a possibility for, say, prices to pull back up, just giving me like a good risk to reward, and I'll take this for a possible sell. So this is what I'm looking at for NAS100. I'm looking for possible sells on this. If we get to a good pullback on this pair, we should get some sells coming in. So something like this. You might target an area like this on NAS100, and if you decide to hold it longer to see if prices might get to 19,000. So this alone should give you like a 1:5, but the best one for you to look at is an area like this, and that's a 2.47 risk to reward. So it's not a lot of analysis I'll probably be doing on these pairs, because it's just like the lineup is so simple. Everything it's not that complex as like the previous weeks. So again, we've had prices moving from 19,000 to 20,000. We got to 20,000, we had sellers reacting at this point. Price came back, and that's how psychological numbers are. When you have prices moving to a psych number, difficulty to go through, you have sellers reacting. Wait for this to test this area one more time, and then you make a decision from that point. So it's just the same principle I've been trading every single time. So all I'm waiting for right now is probably prices to pull back to an area like this, and then I'll look for sells. I might cap everything out here, or see, depending on how impulsive it is. We might hold this to say 19,000. It just depends. Now the same thing is happening on S&P 500. The only difference is on the S&P 500, I don't like the structure compared to NAS. I like the structure on NAS100, but with S&P it might be, this is just a little bit too tricky for me. But the same thing again, we've had prices moving to the upside, and we moved from 5,400 to what, to 5,500 right here. We had sellers reacting, pull back again to 5,500, sellers reacting again from this point, and this is very impulsive. I like this, but the problem is when the pullbacks come in to give us this entry, is this going to give me a good risk to reward on this trade? So this is what I'm looking at on the S&P 500. There's a possible sell on this one like this. So we might look at an area like this just to get, say, maybe a 1:2. We might need a deeper pullback on the S&P 500. So comparing this to, that's why I said comparing this to NAS100, I kind of like the NAS100 setup compared to the S&P one, because they're doing the same thing, but the S&P is the alignment on the S&P is kind of funny compared to NAS100. So again, the same principle, a movement from one psychological number to the next psychological number. Buyers came in, sellers reacted. Buyers came in, sellers reacting. Give us a good pullback, and we can get an entry to take sales from this. So that's what I'm looking at on the S&P 500. And to close everything up, we'll look at gold real quick. So we'll look at gold. Now, for you to understand what's happening on gold, it had to take me a minute to figure out this buys, because last week when I did the focus, I counted this pair out, so I wasn't looking to trade this pair. But when you look at it from this point of view, so if you look, say, from here, we've had price selling to this point. This right here was like the pullback. We had the sell off again. This right here was a pullback. We had the sell, but then there was that inability for prices to go past 2,300. You zoom out again, and then you see like, all right, price is ranging again at this point. So you have two things happening here. You have this psychological numbers holding price between 2,400 and 2,300. You have a trend that was building up from a higher time frame. When you combine all these things, and this psychological number tells you price finds it difficult to go past this point, This is massive for me as well. You have a trend line and you see price putting in, say there's a lower low, there's a lower high, lower low, lower high, inability to make a lower low. This is not rocket science. Then we're looking for an opportunity like this situation where we can take prices again to the upside. So when I saw this happening, I think I finally figured this out on Friday. So it just became clear to me on Friday that the buyers are still interested to take prices again to the upside on this pair, and that's why I got in on this buys, I think around here at this point, and we had this pullback and I had a break even on this. So just going off of this, and we're still expecting these prices to move again to the upside and to at least test an area like this. When the markets open, I think I'll probably look for another buying opportunity on gold. Simply, this depends on what's happening on the DXY and stuff like that. So if we get this pullback on the DXY, just coming in before we see the buyers coming in again, this is going to help me for a move like this on gold, and that is going to help me also on a move like US30. So if the DXY decides to do this, two pairs I'm looking for buys, gold I'm looking for these buys, US30 I'm looking for these buys as well. If the DXY decides to hold at this point and move impulsively to the upside, then I'm looking for sales on NAS, and I'm looking for sales as well on the S&P 500. And that makes it easy with the analysis, that makes it easy with what we're looking at for next week. And guys, if you found this interesting, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Use the comment section, tell me what pairs you're looking at, what setups you're looking at as well, and see you during the next one. Bye for now.